Chess.com strongly condemns Russia's invasion and war against Ukraine. Ukraine is a great nation, a great chess nation, and we are daily saddened by the senseless suffering inflicted upon Ukrainians by the Russian government and its military. After careful consideration, with input from across our community and our leadership team, we are electing to keep our servers and events open to Russian players. We believe that isolation of ordinary Russian citizens only makes it easier for autocracy and propaganda to rule in Russia. However, we cannot support symbols and speech representing Russia and its war in Ukraine. For this reason, on our server and in all of our events going forward, including the one you are about to watch, Chess.com will no longer be displaying the Russian flag for any players. Additionally, we are replacing the Russian flag across our entire website with a new, neutral blue flag that links directly to our policy on the war. We are electing to use our platform to communicate truth and provide information on how to support Ukraine rather than isolate Russian citizens further. For more information on our position, our actions, and ways you can support Ukraine, type the command Ukraine in chat or visit the link directly shared by one of our moderators right now. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you around on chess.com.
It is 9 a.m. on the Pacific Coast. It's noon Eastern time, and that means that it's time for the Rapid Chess Championship. Today is Saturday. It is the day of the Saturday Swiss. I'm Grandmaster Daniel Naroditsky, my partner in crime today. Once again, the one and only Grandmaster Robert Hess. Robert, the games have just begun, so we'll jump straight into the games. But first, how are you doing, and how excited are you for another week of the RCC?
Well, I appreciate you asking me about how I'm doing. My day is great. There is rapid chess to be played and to be commented on. And Danya, we're already into game one and a familiar sight. No, it's not Hikaru Nakamura with an advantage. It's specifically this opening as we turn back time a little bit. Danya, you and I caught this off screen for a second.
I mean, it's actually unbelievable how many grandmasters have fallen into this particular trap. It's like word never gets around, you know?
People need to talk more. We need to share our feelings and the consequences of our opening decisions. This looks like a completely normal idea, right, Danya? You're going queen a5 check, winning the pawn. But after c3 and queen takes c5, bishop a3 wins this pawn e7.
Yeah, and I mean, the amount of people that have fallen into this, even just in the RCC, is pretty amazing. And black loses a full pawn. The compensation is extremely limited. I think there is a way to get compensation, but it involves, I think, not taking on c5 or something like that. It's not the way that Don Chico has played it. He's just much worse.
Yeah, he's worse, and we're just going through the game moves. He has thrown his pawn all the way down to h3, which is causing some issues for white on the king side. And actually, if we see the eval bar over here, Danya, it says still, just around +1 in white's favor. But considering it was a free pawn that early, that was apparently a mistake, but...
Is it because of bishop g4? Yeah, that's bishop d7 doesn't seem like a move that I would play instantly. It's not, it's not the kind of move that you play and then bang the clock. And this is happening, right?
Oh, it all is happening. And the big issue for black is this pawn on d5. It's on a light square. It's isolated, and white's pieces can wrap around at some moment to win it, or white can just take over the c file because the c8 square is covered by this bishop on h3.
And two other issues you haven't mentioned. Number one, white is Hikaru Nakamura. Number two, Hikaru Nakamura is up a pawn. Two other minor issues compounding the problem with the pawn on d5 being on a light square and being indefensible in the long run.
Yeah, and look at the king safety, very safe king for white. The black king, it looks okay for now, but I can imagine at some point with only two pawns in front of it, it's going to be in some danger. So bishop f1, a step in the wrong direction. But Danya, we can be pretty confident in Hikaru's ability to continue this game. Should we check on some of our other participants?
And as we do that, I'm going to put on my Monday morning quarterback hat and say that I think Sasha probably lost his composure a little bit after he blundered the pawn. I think he lost his faith. Whereas before he played bishop d7, he was actually doing a great job of resisting, but now it seems like a bygone conclusion. that Hikaru will convert. What catches your eye?
Well, Vincent Keimer is playing against Alexei Serrana, so that has to be a matchup we want to look at. And at first glance in this game, I see a king on G1. I see some light square problems for white, and yet the eval bar says problems. No, white's doing A-okay.
Playoffs? Talk about playoffs? Playoffs? He's trying to win a game, another game. Well, F4, I guess the issue for black is that he's a little bit cramped. Obviously, white has this bishop on E5. It's hard to say whether that's a blessing or a curse. I mean, it can be chased with F6. It won't be trapped. The bishop does have C7, and then perhaps B6 is an escape route. I'm having a hard time putting a finger on the pulse of this position. Like, who is playing for the advantage here?
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at white's king. I'm looking at those light square issues, but you're right, Danya, that black is already forced to bring the bishop back, I believe, along this diagonal. The only other square I see is H6. Is there a universe where you don't move the bishop at all? Do you take on E5 and then wrap this bishop around to B6? Because that's a useful looking diagonal.
I can get behind that. Knight takes C5, and you can't take the bishop because of the fork. Never mind. He's gone bishop D8 first. So the idea is still on the table of taking on E5, but now white can recapture with the F pawn, should that happen, and then perhaps position the knight on F4.
Right. And I guess this bishop can sit on B6, which puts pressure on the D4 pawn. And with that idea you mentioned earlier, F6, it seems like white's center could collapse at any moment. This bishop is going to come out to G4, this knight on E2. You have to watch out if that one gets captured, if D4 is loose. So there's a lot at stake here in white's position. The eval bar says, you don't know what you're talking about. But realistically, practically speaking, it feels very tricky for white to navigate.
Well, the eval bar always says you don't know what you're talking about. So what else is new? Maybe knight C3? I don't know.
I was going to say you and the eval bar have a lot in common. So thank you both for
that. I see.
I mean, knight C3, you are going for this D5 pawn. So two can play that game with the isolated pawns in the center, but black always has this move F6 available, to kick this bishop out. So knight C3 played.
Yeah, F6, bishop D6, and then there's even knight takes D4 because of that. Again, the problems of the F3 square. I guess after F6, white has another move.
This bishop takes H7. It doesn't, end this continuation at this moment, but now it's looking dicey for both.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
And there apparently is also a better move than F6. F6 looks quite reasonable. I'm wondering what that decision could be.
Well, this problem with bishop takes H7 persists. So bishop B6, I was thinking, but then knight takes D5. No, B6. B as in Bob Hess.
Wow, I don't want to hear that ever again. Bob Williams.
Right, the combination of those two two words. Okay, it's been played.
But
okay. Whoa.
What is happening right now?
How are they playing so quickly in a position this complex? And wait, what about bishop takes G4 and knight takes D5?
It looks like a free pawn. Is he just going to play bishop A7 and then play rook D8?
Oh, that's actually very hard to spot. And the speed with which he recognized this, that the underlying structural deficiencies in white's position are going to come back to bite him, is pretty incredible.
And Vincent, that is such a mature decision right there, because so many people, if we just take a half step back here, they see knight takes D5 hitting the bishop. They don't, can I take on D4, get the pawn back? The answer is no. Should I take this bishop? Nah, probably not. The knight's too strong. So just to have this foresight to recognize that black is going to temporarily be down a pawn, but the white king side is open, a rook is coming to D8. I love what Vincent's cooking right here.
And his longtime coach, Peter Lecco, I think, has pointed this out many times. He's raved about Vincent's positional understanding from a very young age, and not that he's old, but he's already been a GM for a while. And, the guy plays like a seasoned, 60-year-old Eastern European GM, but then has the tactics of a teenager. So it's a pretty dangerous combination.
It is indeed. And he is nearing 2,700. I was checking out the live ratings just the other day. He won a bunch of rating points in the Bundesliga. And so Vincent Keimer, officially something like 2665 or whatever. He's on his way up towards 2680s and for sure 2700s. And what a decision by him. Rook D8 coming, and Alexei deep in the think tank. It's not every day, Danya, we see Alexei Serrana down on the clock.
Yeah, I mean, as he himself pointed out in the last interview when he won the RCC, was that last week? I'm already losing track of time.
That was last week Nepo won. So
oh yeah, it was the week before that when I was commentating last, and he pointed out that it's part of his pre-tournament strategy to play fast. He plays fast over the board, so when he's down over a minute on the clock, it's a bad sign for his position as he moves his king up out of the pin, but doesn't stop the underlying problems. Rook a d8, queen d7. I mean not sure exactly how black should go.
Queen d7 forces that knight to move, and f6 traps that bishop on e5. So he goes rook d8, but that bishop will have the c7 square, I guess. Oh, or 93 with a tempo. So then maybe white has like a d5 move or something just to...
Maybe rook a d8 was inaccurate.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he should have played queen d7. I didn't see this idea of queen d7 combined with f6. Maybe that's also what he missed.
Yeah, because queen d7, it does just kick this knight out. So f6, there's no knight e3 with tempo. That queen's no longer on g4. So f6 will trap the bishop. But in the game, after rook d8, knight e3, now the queen has to move. And I mean, if you have to play with like d5, it's still kind of sad for white. And we see the eval bar still favoring black. But at least you're not in danger of losing a piece in that variation.
No, and if white can get the queens off the board, he should be able to hold the draw. Queen d7, d5, and then, for instance, bishop takes c3, rook takes c3, and then black really has no choice but to acquiesce to the queen trade. And maybe black is a tiny bit better there, but Alexei will breathe a lot easier if he can get more pieces off the board here, which he seems to be on the verge of doing.
And there is no increment in the Saturday Swiss. So for Vincent Keimer, he's a great bullet player, but Alexei Tirana, when he gets down to the wire there, you don't want to mess with him. So now we're in a situation where not only are you trying to evaluate the position objectively, you're thinking, am I going to be flagged?
Alexei Tirana will not hesitate. And bishop takes c3 is on the board. So we have this exact endgame, bishop c3, and white has basically solved all of his problems here.
Right. And these pawn chain here is saying the bishop on c3 is worse than the knight on c6. Even the knight... Yeah, the knight has nowhere to go yet, but I like the way that Vincent's handling it, and he's the one who's well ahead in the clock. And we see rook versus rook flags every single weekend at the RCC.
But it's all about the trend, and I feel like the trend is going in white's favor.
Yeah, that I definitely agree with, and it's totally equal at this point. Nothing to even target. So I'm happy to move on to other games.
Sure.
If you are.
I am indeed. There's Jeffrey I see against Alexeyenko, which you're hovering over. Wow. Good choice.
Well, unfortunately for Jeffrey, I think commenting with me has ruined him. He's worse on the eval bar.
Wait.
He's down a piece.
Yeah, I was going to say he has 2 minors and black has 3.
But I think from now in the blitz time control, Danya, that even though white's king is also open, it definitely gives him chances because the black king isn't completely safe.
Yeah, no, and it's, black has this check on f3 that I think a lot of people would give in a heartbeat, but it doesn't necessarily lead anywhere promising unless there's a white queen on d4. But queen takes d4 does come with check.
That's
so
right.
The knights are imposing, but for the time being, white's king is still, is still surviving. And he does take with the queen, puts it back on b4, hits the rook. The rook has nowhere to go.
Maybe
it's not easy. Bishop c3, yeah.
Because how else do you defend this rook? You can give it up for a bishop. You don't really want to do that. So bishop c3, it defends. Oh, and that's a mistake. Even though that move looks so obvious.
What else was there? I mean, the rook was hanging. There was no other way to defend it.
And is there a piece coming to e8 to shut that queen out from the f8 square? All of a sudden, this black king is feeling awfully lonely.
Yeah, and black's pieces just don't have footholds in the position. They're all sort of scattered about the board. The rook on a5 is out of commission. Rook d1, rook d8 is a terribly deadly idea.
Yeah, but both these squares that the rook lifts up the board here. Ugh.
Maybe black should play bishop f6 and beg for a repetition, but
I would play queen d7. Play on.
Definitely. Jeffrey has overtaken the initiative here.
Oh, what a game we tuned into here. At first I saw the eval bar, so I was a little biased in Alexeyenko's favor, and we are seeing, at least for now, repetition. I don't see another move besides bishop c3. So I think black's hand is completely forced, and the good thing that Jeffrey's doing by repeating is making Alexeyenko think.
Yeah, and Alexeyenko could fall into the trap of thinking for another 30 seconds and then deciding to do something overambitious, such as rook takes b5. Whereas I feel like now when he's down on the clock, Jeffrey's such a monster in time scrambles. He's just more experienced than Alexeyenko. So I think Kirill should just take the draw.
But I think that if I'm Jeffrey, I'm not taking the draw, right? I'll go back.
Yeah,
I'll go
Queen
back
D7.
here in the Queen D7. I'll say no draw. Look at this. He's down 30 seconds on the clock. Is Alexenko?
Kirill doesn't realize, I think, that Jeffrey could refrain from the repetition, and I think that's going to come as a cold shower when Jeffrey plays Queen E7 to D7.
Mm-hmm. And it's one of those things, Danya, that's hard to realize because you're so strong at chess. You always think the best move will be played.
Whoa!
Queen G8, apparently a very good move, and that queen can even come down to A2 with the F2 pawn, knight H3, knight F3. Is white the one who should be careful now?
Bishop C4 by Jeffrey, shutting down the queen's path to A2. Very alert by Jeffrey.
So wait, what was the follow-up here? Because this rook is just hanging.
It is hanging. That's a small. You can't go back to A8. There's a knight on C7, so you can't defend the rook.
Bishop C, but then queen takes A5, then queen takes C4. What is happening there? He does it.
About to happen. Queen takes C4. You called it. And then queen takes F5, knight H3. Jay, is there some sort of perpetual there?
Who's better? Oh my gosh.
Queen F5, maybe it's as simple as like queen E2, and then white has to go for the queen F8 perpetual.
Ugh.
Who knows?
Yeah, and the clock situation now is one where Jeffrey is up a lot of times. Oh,
whoa! Oh, what did he blunder?
That this king can always run away, it seems. And so right here, it feels like that queen can enter E2 or A2.
But if it does, then knight E6 check, and I'm going to fork you on F4 if your queen's on, and that's actually almost mate.
Oh my gosh, yeah, no, I forgot the F4 check. I was like thinking about other things, but
I think Jeffrey is going to win.
Okay, because
knight H3 wasn't the move.
Oh, but it does cover F4.
Right, that's why you put the knight on H3. Very ingenious. And queen F3, in answer to rook F1, is checkmate.
Uh-oh. So you're sure
Jeffrey have perpetual?
He better find it really quickly. Where is? I don't even see enough checks.
Knight E6.
Okay.
King G6, knight F8.
Oh, you are the worst. After King F8,
Thank
King
you.
F6, right?
No, after King F6, I go Queen C6.
Are you sure you have enough checks there?
Yeah, but no, I'm not even trying to get perpetual. I want to get the queen to F5 when your king is on F8.
Oh, that's real. Oh, I see what you're talking about. That's really a nice pattern.
Kirill is actually going back to G8 using the fact that the G7 square is covered by the bishop.
But if I check on C8 and your king goes to one of these squares, can I play like your idea, knight G5, queen takes F5 with check?
Oh, that is a sick idea. Knight G5, queen F5, and then you've got that B pawn. Let's not fall asleep on that pawn. It's 2 squares away from promotion.
Right. And he's going for the first check.
Knight G5, amazing move.
I guess he has knight D8 as well. Yeah, knight D8 is probably even better.
Oh, queen F8. That's not the move. And now he's going to have to give perpetual.
Wow.
Or will Kirill try to run away here? Let's see. Queen E, I don't think you can run away.
Yeah, there's nowhere to go. King G5, there's always queen
G8. That's actually amazing. 3 minor pieces, and neither of them can give protection to the king. Don't go to D5.
Do not do that.
He is playing with some serious pyrotechnics here. D1. Oh, bishop D2.
Okay, so queen D8. Jeffrey's trying to flag him. Jeffrey does not care about queen C8.
Yeah, but Jeffrey's about to get mated.
Queen C8 take on A. Queen C8.
Queen C8. And you can't take on B6 because of rook B1.
Exactly. And now rook B1.
King A3.
Oh my good.
Oh, now he takes F5.
He's protected.
But knight F2. And there are no checks.
This is queen F8.
King A2.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my God, black might win.
And Jeffrey's going to flag if he doesn't move.
He doesn't see a move. I don't see a move. How is white better?
Not that way.
Now he's going to get mated.
Oh, and knight D1 shutting off the
queen E1, queen H1. Queen E1, queen H1. Oh, what a heartbreaker.
What a game that was. That was just completely wild.
Wow. Both sides with plenty of chances there.
Oh my gosh. And there's a couple games still going. Well, this one. Oh, flag potential.
Oh, why did he do that?
Why did he give up the move? That was so wrong.
No, but Etienne is not experienced in time scrambles. But
go.
Why did it take so long?
Oh my gosh. It was for the show.
10th of a second that he had on the clock there. I'm giving Etienne some bullet lessons.
I think Etienne just gave us some bullet lessons. He showed us that he could still do it as long as there's 0.1 remaining.
Oh my goodness. And that was the last game of the round, wasn't it?
Oh my gosh. It was.
Oh my God. Did Hikaru win? Hikaru did win. So as predicted, Gary won, Vidit won, Noterbeck won. So a lot of the favorites won.
Yes, indeed.
But some of the favorites lost. I like to see Gata on 1 out of 1 as well. Always a fan.
And this is the time control where he's super dangerous because he gets flagged for sure. But if he can make it out of the Saturday Swiss with that 2-second increment in the knockout, he's always going to be a really good opponent.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. Well, looks like round 2 is about to get underway here.
And it is. And Hikaru is facing British Grandmaster Gawain Jones, always dangerous with the white pieces.
Mentioned
Gata.
Mentioned Gatakovsky. I have to go to his game. No moves yet from him. And okay, we're not going to see the 4-night Scotch. So at least I'm happy about that. Because David Paravian, every single time you invite him to, he will play it.
Gata decided that he would play the Sicilian, but he didn't decide which one he would play. He started to think after C5. And
Gata, he's been known to play some questionable Sicilians. Like, he loves this early B5.
And you know what else he loves? He loves putting a knight on E7 in the Sicilian. It's a very Gata way of playing. Knight E7, knight BC6. And then knight takes D4, and then the other knight goes to C6.
We know how. I don't even know what this opening. It's like some kind of con, but it's a curious thing. So the knight can come to E7, as Danya was saying. The problem is, like, these pieces, for the moment, they don't have clarity as to where they belong. You could play the classical type setup with the bishop E7, knight F6, and all that, but white has gained a few moves as black went queen B6 and then back to C7.
I'll put it this way, and Gata, of course, is a specialist in these positions, but as a kid, I was playing the C3 Sicilian. I mean, I think we both were. But I would always play open Sicilian against con players. I always found it the most fun to play against E6 Sicilians somehow. I don't really know why, but Eric Hansen, I'm sure, has something to say about that. He's obviously a lifelong con player, but somehow I feel like white always has fun in these positions, more fun than black.
Yeah. Although
do you know what I mean?
I totally know what you mean. But in this particular setup, it's kind of the tried and true method from black side of things, where you have the pawns on D and E6, taking away all these squares from white's pieces. And then white at some point has to make a choice. Do I play pawn E5? Or do I play pawn F5? If I play F5, give me that E5 square. I know you're softening up E6, but I get E5. If you play E5, you're often left with an isolated pawn. You have superior pieces compared to the bishop on D3 where there's a pawn in its way, but you get this isolated pawn that you may lose down the line. So it's a really difficult decision from the player with the white pieces, which is why we study our openings and look at Gata go. He says, give me my knight on B4. And that way, if you ever think about E5, your bishop is not going to be long for this board.
Gata was probably like, I remember this from my world championship match against Veselin Topalov 15 years ago, and David Paravian was still, deciding which crayons he wanted.
And look at this transformation, though. If we just go here after knight B4, knight B5, black is forced to take. And now there's this target on B5, and white has 2 pieces staring at it, but black's pieces aiming at E4 are perfectly situated to make sure that white has to pause before capturing on B5.
White has some pressure, black has some pressure. Okay, position balanced.
That's actually a really good way of summing it up here. I think that black does have a few things. Whoa. I love that move. That's honestly a move that when people play the Sicilian from the black side, like, I shouldn't play E5 because the D5 square, there's no longer a knight on C3. And black's pieces, cover D5, but more importantly, aim at E4. So go ahead.
Sorry, and restrict white's knight on B3, which can't get a D4. Continue. Just throw that in.
100%. So the move C3 does mean that the pawn on C2 is no longer under any danger. And as soon as we're complimenting Gata's play, he makes what is apparently a mistake, but is not really an obvious one.
Well, this is a very typical move in the Sicilian, and it's often followed by knight D7, knight E5, getting that knight to a very nice curve. Gata follows it up differently. He wants to blast through in the center with D5. And why is this bad? Bishop takes C7 is possible because it also hits the F8 rook. But bishop E7, queen F4, bishop F8, rook F8. I mean, it does look like black's pretty active. I don't think this is the, this is not how you slay the Medusa.
There's also maybe pawn takes e4 to throw in here because this bishop is under attack before we take on f8. So,
right.
So many options here. That's what makes it difficult. Is like you see after d5, do I take on e7? Do I push my pawn to e5, which shields my rook and also allows my rook to go to b4 in the event of a capture?
And maybe that's the secret sauce. I think it is e5. And Gata wants to put a knight on e4.
Right.
Oh, this is happening.
Yeah, and the engine, of course, has zeros because
what was the move? I mean, it wasn't e5. It wasn't bishop takes e7. What else existed? Was it rook f6? I mean,
no way. It was.
Oh,
it was rook takes f6.
I was going to mention that, but I didn't think anything of it after bishop takes f6. And I just thought black gets the two bishops. I guess black loses the b pawn in some variation.
You can take b5 will be loose.
Oh, I get it. You take d5. And if bishop takes d5, there's queen h5 winning the bishop.
Bishop takes f8's a mistake. Can you believe that? I guess you just go.
You go ed.
Because queen h5.
Yeah, but rook f d8, and then you just get an attack or something. You go d6, and you can't sack back the exchange because of back rank mate.
Yeah, this is really obvious. Like, how could these players miss that? I mean,
David just should be kicked out of the. Why did we invite him again?
I mean, how could they make all these mistakes? So we're down to the live position here. And rook a to b8, I think we see the threat is the b file, but there's no useful bishop move just yet. So perhaps white, not too worried. I guess he says, all right, I'll get out the way with knight d4. And what's the material count, Danya? White is up a pawn, but black has the best pawn on the board here on e4.
Hey, I'm just a history major. I don't know why you're asking me to count anything. I don't know why I ask you anything at all, period. So what this e5 pawn is loose, b2 is loose. So I would be thinking about just bishop to a8, but maybe there's knight f5 and things like that. What about e3?
Ooh, you want to open that bishop up.
But it's also very risky. I mean, you could end up losing that e-pawn, and then you'll end up 2 pawns down, and that's not something black cannot sustain a situation where white just has the free b and c pawns.
Right. And something that's so tempting because you're like, oh, I have this tactic. Maybe my opponent will miss bishop takes g2 check. But as soon as you put the pawn e3, there's no going back. And that pawn is going to be hunted very quickly. So e3, if I could follow with queen g5 and things like that, it could be a very legitimate attacking try. But I do like the look of my pawn sitting on e4. Speaking
of grandmasters missing tactics, I have a funny story.
Okay.
My brother loves to give me crap for this, but my very first attempt, and one day I'll show this on stream, but my very first attempt at a chess book, I used to love notebooks and writing in notebooks. So when I was about 8, I tried handwriting like a chess book, right? And it was, it was ridiculous. But one of the phrases in that book that's really, really funny, the entire attempt at the book is really funny. But at one point I say, don't try to set traps against the strongest players in the world. If you set a trap against somebody like Vladimir Kramnik, there's a 60% chance that he will see it.
60?
I didn't have a concept of like how good these people are. So, yeah, specifically 60, like not 55, not 65, 60.
How old were you at the time when you wrote this?
I was 8.
First of all, that's adorable. Second of all, hilarious that you're like only a 60. If you set up a 1-move threat, there's a 60% chance that they'll see the trap.
There's another passage in that book where in the middle of a sentence, I clearly interrupted or something, and all of a sudden I'm like, my name is Daniel Naroditsky. I'm 1200. I am writing this book. This is like in the middle of commentating a game. So anyways, we can go back to Hikaru's game.
And
perhaps okay, we can switch to a different game. The result of this game is obvious.
What just happened here? Isn't black up at least 1 pawn and d5 is falling?
Can we do a little post-mortem? How did this happen? This comes the second pawn.
It was looking okay for white, but look at this. This is such an annoying connect 4 to face because you're like, I should be better. Your pieces are restricted. I'm attacking this pawn on d6, things like that. But after c5, took care of all his problems at once, and e4 was a target.
But it still shouldn't be that bad. Gawain played knight d5.
And that was the mistake.
Because after bishop takes d5, you're going to lose either the b pawn or the e pawn. Well, I don't know what exactly he missed, but he just lost his composure here.
Yeah, he just made a one move pawn blunder, and you don't need to ask Hikaru twice. He'll just trade off and now just be up material. So yeah,
easy clap.
Easier than easy. So this is going to be a win for Hikaru. I'll go to 2 out of 2.
Okay, let's go to some other games.
Let's quickly go back to this one. Has there really been no moves?
Gotta offer to draw.
Okay, so Pravin's going to sit and think for a bit and then probably take it. Let's check out Anish Giri playing as Matthias Bluebaum. And
Wow.
I don't know, playing really told the story here because
encapsulates what he's doing to Bluebaum.
yeah, that king on C8 is not long for this board. And
no one for this board. That's a good one.
it's White's turn, and he's not taking a piece on D7. That's what strong players do. When they have a very obviously good move, they think, do I have better? Is it going to be B4? Is it going to be Rook C1 first? That looks pretty strong. Rook C1.
Yeah, Rook C1, B4, Bishop D6, I think is counterproductive because that gives the king an escape hatch on B8, which you don't, okay, does go Rook C1. So he pins the bishop.
Ugh.
Yeah, Bluebaum doesn't have a move. Like black is tied hand and foot, and now white threatens ED and B4.
Are those flowers in Anish's background? Yeah,
I believe they are. Are those meant for tomorrow?
Probably, but he's ruined the surprise if that was the intention. So
Make sure his mom isn't watching the broadcast.
It could also be for Sopiko.
It could also be for Sopiko.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Sopiko is also
A mother
of course,
times
the mother
two.
of their lovely, I think, 2 children.
That's correct. And
One of whom is named Daniel. Good choice.
oh gosh, 95. So hoping that the king can run away, Danya, but can't White just even take this knight on E5 and then take with the queen?
Yeah, just take twice. That's exactly what he's doing. And the problem is the moment White snaps up that bishop on C5, the king is busted.
And White is already had one pawn, has one pawn for the piece, excuse me. And now after B4, I'm just going to win that piece for free. And G7's hanging. I have passed E6 pawn. Yikes.
Yeah. Veni, vidi, giri.
Nice
over.
one. Nice one. All right, so let's keep going on to some other games. We see that Giri is going to win. What about this one here between Demchenko and the big fish?
The way you said Demchenko, I thought, are you going to say Fedchenko or something? No, it doesn't. The 2 names do not rhyme.
Did you see how quickly they just played those last few moves? I was trying to look at the position. There was a rook G1, the king went to H8, the rook snapped up the pawn, and then queen B5 as if nothing happened.
Queen B5, just a move on the other side of the board. And White's got big issues on the queen side. That entire construction is flimsier than a house of cards.
I was wondering where you'd go with it, and then
I didn't know where I would go with it, and I just resorted to the clichéest of cliches.
But I still appreciate the effort, Doug, just so you know.
I was going to go with the house analogy, but I don't know what kind of house is particularly flimsy. Or a par. I don't know.
House of hay, and you blow the house down like was it Little Red Riding Hood?
This sounds like a good. I used to watch the show $100,000 Pyramid. Loved it. Watched it every morning before school. And there, you basically have to give one-word clues, and the other person has to name obscure categories of things, like flimsy things or things with 3 legs, right?
Ooh, that's pretty good. A tripod.
That would be an example of a tough one. Yeah, you would have to say tripod. And then the other person would keep guessing categories. So it's a great show. Anyways, not better than the RTC, but still.
Well, I like the sound of it. I also like the look of this potential attack as queen H6 threatens queen G7 mate, also puts pressure on this F pawn. The second rook can slide to G1. So even though the eval bar loves black's position, this is one of these games, Danya, where Fedoseev could just lose in 2 moves.
I'm sorry. There's a very funny message in chat. Veni vidi giri came, I saw, I drew. I'm sorry. Sorry, Anish.
Look what you started.
But that is funny. I think even Anish can laugh at that.
Is there a knight C8?
Ooh.
And then
queen H6 is now with a threat, but Fedoseev just in time. I think rook G1 was hasty.
Yes.
I think that was hasty. He should have gone knight C8.
And it's very difficult to stop what's been your plan this whole time is going for the G file. And Well, we can see Timchenko's camera
Again in black and white.
Yeah,
It just makes everything look so much more intense.
yeah. It's I just feel like I'm thrown back in time. There he is.
That's honestly pretty cool.
Yeah, how do I get that filter for my camera? But either way, rook g1 was a mistake because with the rook behind your passed pawn, the move knight c8 hits this rook, hits this bishop, and that bishop is such a key defender of this f6 pawn, and now this a pawn is sprung free. So this would have been a great choice for Timchenko.
Absolutely. Now it seems like the game is slipping away from him. So is his clock. Better late than never, but not in this case. Knight c8 no longer comes with the same luster.
Right. And it attacks the rook, so clearly you should get that out of the way. And the knight may want to go to d6 so that if you take, the queen gets into h6, but unfortunately for white, that bishop was hanging on b4 first.
Right.
Yeah, this is just turning around completely in Fedoseev's favor.
Yeah, the knight ignominiously has to come back to b6. Okay. So this one seems to be going Vladimir's way.
This is how strong the RCC is.
Right. I was thinking exactly the same thing.
Jeffrey lost the first game and he gets Dubov, but now he's apparently completely winning. How many pieces has Dubov sacrificed? 2 minor pieces?
And that number might turn into 3 pretty soon. So bishop f5, what is the idea? Rook f5 simply?
Simply, yes.
But okay, even queen f5 and knight e4 there. Black has tried this on for size. A rook and 3 minor pieces for the queen. Is that all she wrote?
That's a beautiful line, by the way. I'm just going to show that.
That is a nice line. Both knights threatening a 4-country 3. I love those constructions. You can't take either because its cousin does the honors.
Yeah, that's actually a sweet tactic. You don't see that very often.
No, you do not.
But no matter which knight you take, this other one that survives goes to g3, and it's a fork.
And queen h7, simply knight g3 check, and bishop f6. I wonder if he played this. So it's Dubov's move. No, I think this is happening. Oh, he played knight e4 first. So it's even unnecessary to play queen f5.
So queen h6, do not, and I repeat, do not play knight g7 after queen h6, because knight g7 walks into checkmate in one move.
He played queen h5, hoping for queen takes f5, but Jeffrey is not fooled.
No, resignation. And Dubov loses his second. No, he drew the first game, I guess. So he drew and then dropped to play Jeffrey. But queen takes f5 would have been a blunder because mate won. So knight g3 first, getting the queen. And that is all. So Dubov loses that one. Jeffrey rebounds from his round 1 loss. And more chess. Where do we go to here, Danya?
Well, let's go to Mr. Vidit, shall we?
Vidit Gujrathi.
Who is playing...
Wait, that's not, I clicked the wrong game. Sorry.
No, I mean, that's okay. I'm happy to look at Naroditsky too.
Yeah, Naroditsky. Oh, it looks like Vidit and Naroditsky also have sky high eval bars on their game.
Yeah, white's up a piece, but still obviously some chances associated with white's weak king.
Queen f3.
Rook e5.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, it happened.
Wow, we just spoke that into existence.
We did, but it's still winning for white. The bad news for Kirill, queen h5, rook e8, takes stakes, and bishop takes c7. Vidit should be able to win that.
He'll be up a pawn there. Not as nice as being up a piece, but there's also no...
Oh,
what?
But he's discombobulated after... Why not rook e8?
He has it again.
He does, and now he plays it.
He found it the second time.
Clearly thrown off kilter by that blunder, which was, of course, Hess's fault.
It was. I take full responsibility. Sorry, my friend Vidit. And
whoa, no, bishop c5 wasn't. This is weird play.
Yeah, but look at the clock. Both sides down under a minute. I think Vidit's getting nervous.
But it's a 3-result game, and it's so easy to blunder a fork in these situations. Mark my words.
Ooh, and there were threats.
Seven.
Oh, rook e7 to trade the rooks.
Don't go king e2. Okay.
No. Rook h4, going after the h6 pawn. Good play. How do you even defend these? Go rook h7? Ugh, too passive.
b4, that's a good practical move. But Vidit, bishop e5, amazing move.
Yes, perfect
rook
move. Then bishop d6 probably? Or maybe...
d5?
Give me that pawn.
No, now it should be a pretty straightforward win. There is a check on E3. Okay, doesn't give it.
F4, king up. The king G2. Go this way. Oh, he's
Always worried about a fork.
just pushing those pawns.
F6 and rook G7 is coming.
And the black king goes to D5.
Oh.
This is annoying.
Knight F6. Go knight F6.
Oh, stalemate.
No, but rook F6.
Yeah,
but you should try it. Oh, Vidit down. Oh my God, it almost works.
Not anymore though with the king
Right.
away from here.
Right.
It's almost checkmate the other way too after this move.
Rook C7, rook C5. But the clock, Vidit still hasn't promoted. Rook C5 though.
King E6, bring the king up.
Fork, real. No, knight F6.
Oh my
God.
goodness.
Now he's got a chance.
Yes, but now Vidit can pre-move a little more easily. Rook 6,
Whoa!
he walked right into it.
Oh my goodness. He actually had a shot there. If he went rook F1, he had a serious shot at drawing that game or even flagging Vidit there.
But he blocked with his face. Rook C6.
6.
Oh my gosh, D5 for the explicit purpose of playing
Rook
Rook C6.
F1, and white is a long path to win that because the black's rook is in great position.
Yeah, no, I think black can, likely survive this, although it's difficult when, 3 seconds is a lot,
Right.
but 2 pawns also is difficult to deal with. So Vidit, he gets that one at the end, and that is the end of round 2.
That is the end of round 2. And what an